Hello, sisters. Hello, hello. Welcome to March Goddess Chat. Gonna let Facebook have a minute to do its thing. As you are joining me, let me know. If you've been tuning into my lives recently, you'll know. Oh, you're already here. Yes. Okay, so we'll give
Can you
Jessica
hear
a
me?
minute to come on. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Hi, you're pretty low. Let me make sure it's not on my end. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me?
Is there a way to turn it up a little bit? It might be me.
Mine's all the way up.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hello. Looks like people are joining. Give me 1 second. I can hear you. It's just kind of faint. So I can make it work though, because it could be something on my end. But I'm glad you're here. So that's the first part. In the comments, if everyone can let me know, I'm going to have Jessica just say her name again before we dive into it. Just let me know if you can hear her. And if you guys can hear her, then cool. And I'll make it work on my end. Hi, Teresa. Hello, hello. Hi, Macy, Yolanda. Yeah, someone drop in the comments. Let me know if you can see and hear us okay. Though, and Jessica, if you want to say something.
You guys hear me? I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Let's see. I'm just going to double check on that. Let's see if we get a comment going. Hey, Heather. Yeah. Okay, so sisters are with us. We're going to give it a minute to just get some confirmation on your sound that someone could hear you.
Okay.
Okay, you can hear us both fine. So it must be a thing on my phone, but I'll just, if I look like I'm focusing really intently, I am anyways, but it's also just to be able to hear you. So before we get started, since the hard part's over and you are here with us, that's awesome. Let me just take a minute to introduce myself to the women here in the community in case you are new. My name is Leah Pegram, and I'm the owner and founder of Her Sacred Circle. So I'm a circle and retreat facilitator, a ceremonialist, and a sacred feminine embodiment guide. And I feel really passionate about this community, which all started as a way for us to gather outside of Circle here in the Grand Strand, and over the past 5 years it's grown into a global sisterhood with almost 4,000 women, and it's just a really beautiful place to connect, to find inspiration, to find education, to find support, kind of all of those things in a sacred sisterhood space. And what we're doing right now is a goddess chat. And so what this is once a month I come on with a sister in our community, and we have a conversation and we just talk about what medicine she's here sharing with the world. And so I'm so excited and honored to introduce Jessica Hudacko. And yeah, I think just to get started, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and even though this is a global sisterhood, there's a lot of sisters here in the Grand Strand, so maybe a little bit of your story of how did you find yourself here, or are you from here, a little bit about that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This is exciting. So yes, I'm Jessica Hudacko. I am actually a mom of 5. A lot of times when people ask me, they're like, what, huh? What? But yes, mom of 5, 3 girls, 2 boys, and I've been married. We're actually celebrating our 18th anniversary this Saturday. So been married for a little bit of time. I'm originally from Connecticut, believe it or not. And we moved down here in 1997 for me to go to college. I think I just gave you guys my age. So I came to Coastal for college, and then my parents, they missed me too much, so they kind of moved down here too. And so we've just been here since 97. I love it here on the Grand Strand, the weather, the people, everything, the culture, everything. It's just a lot different. But that's basically what kind of brought me down and just stayed. And then I met my husband through teaching because he is a local teacher at the high school at St. James. So you might have recognized the last name there if you know him. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I used to teach for 14 years in Horry County. And I did kindergarten and 2nd grade. And then when baby number 4 came is when I kind of resigned and took a step back to stay home with the baby.
Beautiful. We are glad that you're here in the Grand Strand. What's really funny is we have not met in person yet. So it's so funny how that happens with spaces like this, that you'll connect online and really vibe with people. And then you're like, oh wait, we live in the same area. Like we should hang out and go get coffee. So I love that this is actually the first time that we're having a face-to-face chat. It's so funny. Just checking in on the comments. Okay, Macy, Yolanda, Heather's here. Cool. Sonia, yes. So I love that. And I love that when we're voice noting, we can always hear our babies in the background. So I see you, Mama, with having the little one at home, and you have a variety of ages as well. And my oldest is 13. So I kind of resonate with the kids at all ages. what I'm really inspired by with you, and one of the reasons I felt really called to invite you to come do a goddess chat, is that a lot of what we talk about and what's shared, and even goddess chats I've done here in the community thus far, is very, soulfully based, and a lot of like mindset and emotional stuff. And I felt very called over the past year and a half to really drop into my own body, right? And paying a lot of attention to that. Grounding into the earth, really focusing on, anytime I'm putting something in or on my body. And you share a lot in your platforms, or on your platforms, about just that, about making, intentional and conscious choices around healthier living, around what you're putting into this earthly temple, like I like to call it, right? And really treating our bodies as a temple. So I would love to just start there and just talk to me a little bit about, because it's very easy in life just to kind of be going through the motions and get caught up in like what's convenient and what's available and those kind of things, and not really slow down enough to pay attention to like, wait a minute, will this actually make me feel more alive and thriving, or is this going to deplete my energy and make me feel like, oh, like yucky? So I'd love to talk about that on like a few different fronts. But maybe let's start with, when was that moment for you when you kind of had that aha, like, okay, let's take a pause and really be intentional about this? Yeah, I mean, kind of whatever comes up for you with that, but I would just love to kind of hear more about how that kind of started your journey with all this.
So really it started 12 years ago, maybe actually 11, because he just turned 12. When my son, he was having a lot of acid reflux when we turned, like he turned 1 and we put him on milk and things like that. He was having it was really bad. And so we took him to the doctors, and he was to the doctors a lot at that time because he was a preemie and things like that. So we were obviously in and out a lot with him. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They put him on meds, put him on meds, put him on meds, didn't work, got worse, like all this other stuff. And then finally, like that's kind of when I started doing my own research. And so when I started kind of doing my own research, I was like, I wonder if he's lactose intolerant. And I brought it up to the doctor, and he's like, oh no, he can't be, because he was on formula, prior. So I was like, I eliminated it myself. And that's when everything stopped. And I was like, So we put him on almond milk, went back to the doctor, told him, and he's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought he was, because he was on formula. And so that's when I kind of was like, like maybe I need to start doing things myself and kind of researching for myself to advocate for my family and for myself. And so that's when it kind of started. We had him on almond milk. And then that same year, my daughter started kindergarten, and she's now almost 17, but she started kindergarten at the time. And about halfway through the year, she would come home smelling like really bad BO, like adult BO. And I was like, ew, like you're not even a teenager yet. What is going on? And then probably too much information here, but she started getting like a few little hairs. And I was like, well, we're in kindergarten. What is going on? And so that's when we, went to the doctor and everything. He's like, it's normal. She's going through pre-puberty. And I was like, that's normal? Like, my daughter's in kindergarten, 5 years old. This is not normal. And so that's when I kind of went home again, going down the rabbit hole of research. And one of the things was taking cow's milk out. So we took cow's milk out of everything, and everybody in the house went to almond milk. And then also that's kind of when I switched over to grass-fed and like organic meats as much as I could, because I mean, we were both teachers living paycheck to paycheck and stuff, so I did the best I could. And her BO went away and everything stopped. And fast forward, she didn't end up going through puberty until the end of 7th grade. So we were able, in my mind, I think we held it out as long as we possibly could with that. So that's kind of where we kind of went and started flipping everything in our house. For me, I grew up, with my mom making hamburger helper and mac and cheese with hot dogs, which I love, and things like that. And so I did the same thing. Like, we'd have our chicken and we'd have hamburger helper and a canned veggie, trying, making my food for my kids and thinking that I was doing the right thing. But in the long run, the hamburger helper is processed. It has chemicals in there, shelf life, fillers, all this stuff, which that's when I went kind of down the rabbit hole and started switching things out and made my own stuff. And that's really where it started to begin. I think my first thing I did after the switching over the milk and the meats was I bought a bread maker and just kind of dumped all the ingredients in and started making my own bread. And I started there, and then we just kind of went up and added things along the way. And that's kind of where it really kind of all started.
Where it's I'm always inspired by your bread posts. For those of you that make your own bread, like, I honor you, I see you, and I'll just purchase from you because, you know, some of us, like, that's really like can seem overwhelming. But at the same time, what I think is really beautiful with community is if people have certain skill sets, or if it really lights someone up to, like, you know, I have this friend Casey, she makes incredible like bagels, and so like I'll purchase from her, or like, you know what I mean, that you can like work with people in your community that are really passionate or talented in certain things. And I think it's really interesting, just the conversation of the food and the nutrients that we put into our body, and those sources could be an entire week long, you know, if not year long type, you know, summit or discussion. And I do want to just kind of disclaimer that in this space, obviously there's non-judgment. So this conversation is not to judge anyone for their food choices. Like, I literally have some processed food in my pantry right now. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, you do what you can, but it's also one of those things, like, once you know better, do better. And I'm a really big fan of like the 1% shift, right? So if, you know, you can't all of a sudden switch, you know, all of your meats to grass fed, like, what is a small shift you can make? Or like, can we, you know, one meal a week, make it a little healthier, right? So I guess that's another question that I have around, you know, maybe food or different things that you're putting into your body or things you're doing at home, to make it really accessible to everyone in the sisterhood. You know, one, if you're on a budget, or, you know, if you're like me and probably not going to be able to make it. Maybe I could make my own bread. Maybe we'll call that in, that at some point this year, maybe I'll make my own bread. But what is, like, would you say, you know, if you could only choose like one thing when it comes to food to at least really pay attention to, what would that be, to at least start looking at, when it comes to like the food that we're putting into our bodies, or at least to start maybe researching, if you want to throw that out to people, like, you know.
Yeah, the research is definitely key. And then I would say for me, like following people like on Instagram, because now it's so accessible to kind of follow people that are, you know, doing the work for us, where I don't have to do as much work when I'm looking for ingredients and things like that. But one thing that I like what you said, Leah, too, is, you know, we all are doing the steps. I'm someone, and I'm going to say this right to y'all, I'm someone that gets overwhelmed very, very easily. So for me, like, I have to make one goal, and then when I accomplish that goal, then I'll add another goal. And otherwise, like, for me, I'll get overwhelmed. I'm like, this is too much, never mind, you know? So that's one thing, like, again, because it has been, like I said, 11 years, it was just one little thing. And then I just add another thing on top of it. And it just kind of made it easy that way. But starting off, especially if you're on a budget, I would say just looking at like processed and non-processed. I'd say that would probably be the easiest thing at first, is just, you know, like kind of just changing out certain things. For instance, like, you know, and here's the thing, sometimes it takes a little bit more time or prep to do something. So for instance, like today we just finished eating dinner, and we had hamburgers and we had carrot fries. So instead of having, you know, like the French fries from the bag at the store that's covered with seed oils, then we just kind of cut up the carrots, seasoned them, put them in the oven, baked them, and we dip them in the ketchup. And so, and my daughter, since she was one that was the longest on like our regular diet prior, she was the hardest to convert. And so I'm going to tell you guys straight up right now, your kids will probably be like fighting you against things that you might change, but they'll get used to it. Because then they just get used to it, and they're like, oh, okay, this isn't actually that bad, because their palates start to change and everything too. So it's just kind of just switching out little things here and there. My first thing was the bread maker, but the bread maker is easy because you just dump all the ingredients in there and it does it all for you. So that was like my first thing that I did. But then also, like, instead of having hamburger helper, I replaced it with like just having some noodles and sauce, you know, or just making my own hamburger and, you know, kind of putting it together that way. Pinterest was my best friend.
Yeah.
So I would just find like recipes
it's
on there.
amazing the resources that we can find, you know, when we do
Yep.
check out some of these platforms, right? Like there is a lot where it's like, oh, can these platforms, you know, like cause harm? Yes, but also they connect us in community and you're able to research and find things that are really helpful. So, you know, thank you for sharing that. And I think that it's really beautiful to think about, like taking those small shifts, right? Like just like a little shift, even if it was like every week, if there was just a small shift, what that would look like in a year, right?
Yep.
And then 2 years, and then 3 years. And now you're saying like right around like, you know, 10 plus years of you doing this. Now it feels like a lifestyle. And so I think that that's really beautiful. I want to make sure there's not any questions. Heather says yummy carrot fries. I know, I'm intrigued by that too. Kaya really likes carrots. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I also want to look up, because I'm a big numerology person, what sevens mean and if they're tied to like health in any way. If there's any sisters in here that are really plugged in with numerology, let me know. Because the 2 times I've seen the clock, it's been 7:07 and now it's 7:17. And I love that. So I'm always like, okay, like this is supporting it somehow. Okay, so also one thing that comes up for me around the conversation with what we're putting into our bodies is really coming back, because I'm such an advocate for community, right? Knowing where your food is coming from and how can we, even if it's in that like that small percentage, small shift, start supporting more local, right? And even if it's just like within South Carolina, North Carolina, like kind of where we are, even if it's like your state and neighboring states, how can we bring it in, these choices that we're making, and support, one, smaller businesses, two, something more local to home. And then, of course, this does not come from, I'm not a nutritionist or a scientist or anything. I would think that the way that like honey works with allergies, right? Like if you're going to get honey, you want to get it closer to where you are. I would think the same with the food. Like you would want the food to be closer to where you're actually living. So in what you bring into your home, do you try to source locally, you know, when you can? Is that something that you found to be helpful? Or
So I used to go to the farmers markets and do things like that, especially like in Conway when they had them there. One thing though I did find is you have to also be careful, like when you ask them, hey, is it organic? They'll be like, well, we can't claim it because we use 10-10-10, you know, things like that. So make sure like when you're talking to them, you are, because even though it's local, they still might be using chemicals to get rid of like the herbicides and pesticides and things like that too. So that's one thing. But we do have a couple farms that have pasture raised meats out in Loris and Taper City there. And then so you can like buy meats that way, and they come over to Market Commons on certain dates. So you can always go and buy the meats there as well too. I am, because of time, because that's my thing that holds me back a lot, is with the time.
yeah,
Is I found, first of all, Costco has like organic meats and grass-fed beef and things like that too. That's decent priced. I like Costco a lot. And then Wild Pastures gets delivered to your house. So I do have that as well. And then I do Misfits Market as well too, for organic veggies and fruits and things like that too, that I found that are good. And they actually have pasture raised meats too. But again, when you're on a budget, you want to probably be careful sourcing that way. But definitely if there's farmers market and you have time, Market Commons has it, usually in Myrtle Beach downtown. They used to have it there. And then Conway, you can find those two on there. And that's a way to get the locals
okay, beautiful
stuff too.
The comments are like blowing up. People are very into this conversation. Oh, okay, I have a numerology thing. Sevens are about reflection, assessment, and control. Makes sense, reflecting on our choices, controlling what goes into our bodies. So that's really beautiful. So the sevens that I was seeing very much support this conversation. And then Sonia was asking about what grocery store do you recommend getting these healthy choices, and you did mention Costco. So it's one thing I can't do is going to 2 to 3 different stores to grocery shop. Or are there better brands that you recommend in grocery stores like Walmart or Kroger? I used to work for a while in foods, but they are so pricey without employee discount. So yeah, and I think what we'll also do, I'll let you answer that for sure. But then here in the Goddess Collective, what we can do is I'll start a thread for people that are here in the Grand Strand, and then also just kind of outwardly, because this is a global sisterhood, and let's have this conversation. I think that this is important to bring in the body wellness piece to what we do here in this space. It really is mind, body, spirit. That's what we want this community to be. So I'll start a thread so all of us can start contributing. There's incredible nutritionists in this group as well that I'm sure will throw in their insight. But yeah, Jessica, if you want to touch on that. I know you mentioned Costco is where you tend to go. Have you found any other
time.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay,
am I
go ahead.
freezing? Am I good? Okay. I don't have time. So basically my two go-tos is I'll do Walmart pickup. So I do Walmart pickup. And Costco is my big one because we have such a big family. So I'll go there and they do offer such a great selection of clean ingredients and organic stuff. And then I'll do like Kroger because I do like Kroger's produce too. So those are basically my three go-tos. I know a lot of people do Aldi's, but for me to go there for a couple items in the drive, and I know I'm sounding probably entitled right now, but like I have limited time. So that's kind of what I do is I'll do a grocery pickup from Kroger and most of my stuff comes from Costco. But again, my family's so big, so that's why Costco is usually my go-to, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. And any other sisters in here?
I wish we had Whole Foods.
Yeah, Allison mentioned that it's FitSmart. Okay, it's an online service. Okay, so keep the conversations going. Give me 1 second to play with my sound for a second, and I'll come right back. Let's just pause, keep the conversation going in the thing. I'm gonna see if I can switch this.
Okay. Oh
Ready?
yeah, that is louder.
Tell you a funny story. It's been in these lives with me before. The weirdest things happen to me with technology, and I kid you not, 2 seconds ago I started hearing your voice in my kitchen, and we have a Bluetooth. Like there's like a speaker. I don't know if it's Bluetooth. I guess it has to be. And I started hearing it, and I'm like, is that us talking in the kitchen? So I could actually hear you louder, and so I was able to turn it off, and now we're good. So never a dull moment when I try to use technology for whatever. My energetic field leg is so combative with it. Okay, so I love this conversation. If you guys have any questions as we're moving through, because I do want to also honor time about the food, please, definitely throw the chat here. And then we'll come back and also keep, kind of answering those. We'll definitely start a thread here in the group around food. But I would also like to touch on a couple of different things when it comes to being intentional and conscious, with choices based on things that I've seen you share. With women specifically in the beauty industry, I know that that's something that you share about. And I'm actually like consciously now in my life going through and like, I got this app, but I'm like, like scanning like products that my daughter uses and then I use because I'm noticing even with her and like her hormones and like even like her cycle, like it's not regular and it should be. And so I'm really thinking that some of these products that she's been using are impacting that. And the more research I do, I'm realizing that they are. And so this whole overhaul moment in our life of throwing a lot of stuff away. So if you want to maybe share a little bit about what you found, with beauty and how you're kind of shifting that in your life. And again, whatever your favorites are. And then, let's have the accessibility conversation as well around like kind of the beauty industry. And again, this could be a topic for like an entire week as well. So we're taking really big topics and condensing them into this conversation. So just ask questions as you guys want as we keep chatting.
So I think of our skin. Our skin is actually our largest organ in our body. So our skin is actually absorbing the toxins, all the toxins that are out in the environment. It's taking everything in, not just the sun, everything. And so it is really important to know what you're putting on your body. One thing you want to if you want to just break it down to something smaller is, stay away from the parabens, stay away from the fragrances. And the fragrances also, if it's plant-based, like if it's essential oils or terpenes, things like that from the plant, then you're okay. But if it doesn't state that, you can always call the company. And honestly, if you look at the package, you usually can tell anyways. So, things like that, perfumes, and then formaldehyde and petroleum. You think of like the big Vaseline things that we grew up on, like no. So like it's crazy to think, but it's just start small. I personally, as far as my favorites, like I use Green Compass as face wash, the vitamin C. I love the vitamin C. It's like pure vitamin C. It's really good. You definitely need to use SPF if you use it. And then as far as like makeup, which I really don't wear makeup a lot. Like even for this, I was like, I gotta go throw some makeup on real fast because I don't usually wear makeup as much. But ILIA, ILIA is a good one, Beauty Counter, and just kind of just making sure with the ingredients is the biggest thing. Another thing too, just a little hint for you guys. There is, if you follow Flav City, FLAV City, he has an app too. So you got the EWG app, and then he has an app which is like a Bobby approved is what it's called. And my kids are so funny because they're like, "Is this Bobby approved?" And they'll scan it, you know. But you can do that for skincare. You can do that for makeup. You can do it for deodorants. Schmidt's, I like Schmidt's a lot for deodorants. For hair care, I like a Cure, and those are good skin ones too. For skincare, a Cure. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. I'm trying to think what else. Other questions on that one?
Aldehyde like blows my mind. Like it's just so interesting when you start kind of diving down. I don't even like to use the word rabbit hole, but like when you just start looking in plain sight, just some of what is in, you know, some of this stuff. So it's absolutely,
yes, Tarte's a good one too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anything you guys want to recommend, drop it in the comments. We love this to be a collective conversation. It's really interesting. You mentioned deodorant, and my husband's actually been on a big kick with that. And just like, you know, was telling me all this stuff about like the aluminum that's in certain deodorant, like, you know, throwing all this stuff away. And you know, it can seem overwhelming because I've been in it, right? Where I'm like looking at my makeup bag and I'm like, and I don't even wear makeup that much. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can put mascara on for this, but still, you know, you have these things and even things you've used forever. And I'm just really getting to the point where it's like, okay, you don't have to necessarily dump the entire bag out, right? But maybe use up what you have, and then can you switch one product? Because I really like try to break it down to like the small shifts, right? So is that something you would suggest? Maybe just like baby as you can, if it's not available to you to dump it all out and buy new, like use what you have, make it sustainable for you, right? While then also really looking at like, do I need this? Like, is this actually serving me? I mean, we talk about this all the time in the community, like, does this serve my highest good? And I think that this is an important conversation because when we look at our bodies as temples, like, is it serving my highest good? And sometimes that means like making tough choices, right? Or, you know, switching or going without or whatever it may be to ultimately make yourself feel better. Like, you know, I noticed that when, you know, I put certain things in my body, or like we were talking about food, when I'm making those choices from an intentional place, and honestly, also an intuitive place, right? Because your body will kind of tell you if you can really tune in, like, feel good for me. And you'll kind of get that signal of like, no, probably not, right? And then afterwards, you definitely get the signal where your body's like, that was not the right or not the aligned decision. But yeah, our birthright is to be here and feel really good, right? And like that's kind of like the body piece that I'm on now. Like that's kind of where my focus is. It's like I want to feel as great as I can feel in this body while I'm here, right? Because, you know, we got like one shot at this in this lifetime. We're a soul here having this human experience. Like, let's feel what it feels like to be human and thriving, right? And we just don't realize. And so again, it's like for me, it's been like once I know better, how can I make smaller shifts to do better? Sonia says, I love, is it Scient? I don't know that brand specifically. I don't know if you do, Jessica. She loves that.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, keep it going.
I'm here. I'm just setting my battery mode on lower battery.
Low with it. I mean, minutes ago you were playing in my kitchen, so you know it's happening. It's like okay. So if you guys have any questions about the food piece, about the the beauty industry as a whole, it's really interesting. And kind of is interesting to talk about this community, how oftentimes women are set to have this almost unattainable standard, and it's just really interesting when you then match that with they've built this entire industry on making women feel like they're not good enough, so they buy all of these products. And so that's feeding into the unworthiness piece. And then not only that, a lot of these products are actually not great for your body. You're feeling more like shit, and then it's just the internal heaviness of it. But I think this is just such an inspiring conversation to have, just so people can, or my hope with this conversation is that people will take this pause to be like, oh, I've never actually even thought to think about that, or heard about it. Even for me, I've heard things about makeup and here and there, but that was kind of one of the last things where I was like, now I really want to take a hard look at this. And now that my daughter's almost 13 and she does wear makeup here and there, being like, oh, wait a minute. It's almost like now that I'm looking at it through my child, I'm like, wait, I don't want to put that on her,
Yes.
Lit a fire under me to just be more intentional about it. So thank you. Another thing that I want to touch on before we hop off is what I've talked about a few times in this community and how we're connected is Green Compass and is CBD. I am such an advocate for plant medicine, for reconnecting with Mother Earth and all that is available to us on this planet without having to throw a bunch of other stuff in it, right? And it's like, can we work with what is being provided by Mother Earth, right? And so this past year, I signed on with Green Compass, and I've been taking CBD and have been a fan of hemp for years. But I would love, because I know that you are so knowledgeable on this, just to touch on that a little bit, because I know that that's another thing that you've woven into your life to help your body feel better. And for me, it's to feel more grounded and just in my body, I think, instead of trying to escape away from it. For people that aren't familiar or might not even know what the hell I'm talking about, like
Yeah.
maybe what is CBD, and maybe why you chose to weave that into your life. And then if anyone has any specific questions about CBD, of course we can answer it. But I would love to touch on that as well.
So just kind of going back in my life with my story is one thing I grew up with is having panic attacks. I had really high anxiety and had panic attacks. My mom was very an advocate for plants and plant-based things back then. She always has been. And so even then the doctor wanted, back then they didn't even have like anxiety meds was like, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't even like a thing type of thing and so they offered it to my mom and she's like, no. And there is a place, I do believe there's a place and a time for meds. All, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. But my mom was like, no. So she kind of taught me breathing techniques that helped me to overcome my panic attacks when they would occur. And my daughter, she's now almost 17, she inherited that trait. And so she had panic attacks, and then as well as my 7-year-old. So I was teaching them breathing techniques that my mother taught me, and to the point where she's 7 now, but she wasn't 7 at the time. She was younger. She would sit there and she knew how to do her breathing techniques. And now we're seeing it with my 1-year-old. Sadie, she gets like that and gets overworked and can't breathe. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. So anyways, but backtracking to that is I wish I had CBD back then. I really, really wish I did, because for different factors, for my menstrual cycle where I took a week off from school because I was in such pain, things like that. My mom ended up putting me on birth control to control that. Grace had that same trait. And because we put her on CBD, it evened her menstrual cycle out, and she's regular and she doesn't have those cramps anymore and things like that. But also her anxiety has switched, and we really got on it for my husband's snoring. And you guys, if you have a partner that snores, this is why I had to find something and do research. But that's really why we started. And then when he stopped snoring in 5 days after taking CBD, I was like, whoa, let's check this out. And that's kind of where we kind of started. But then we got Grace on. She was the second one to get on, and her anxiety just switched. I mean, she didn't have the social anxiety anymore. She hasn't had a panic attack since 2020. It's been amazing. I mean, when we tell the story, my husband will cry about it because we see just a different child. And then I got on it myself, not thinking I needed it, but I have high anxiety. So it has just like, I mean, Leah, because you're taking it as well. It just changes you to just be more calmer, and I'm less snappier at my kids. And so I've always been an advocate anyways for holistic. So like even when my son had ear infections, we were doing the garlic and oil, cooking up the garlic and oil for the ear infections. We use essential oils. We diffuse in our house constantly. We'll do the essential oils on the feet, the chest, the back, things like that. So it was just something that aligned with us. Mm-hmm. And that's basically kind of why we got started taking it. And it is just such a beautiful plant that just heals so many things.
So people don't know what CBD is. Can you do like a really like brief, simple, like this is CBD and kind of the fact that we talked about that it was like blowing my mind the more I've been doing on it, just like what you don't know until you know.
So we all have an endocannabinoid system, which is actually the largest system in our body. And we have receptors, and basically CBD actually connects to those receptors like a lock and key. And what happens is it puts your body into homeostasis. So if you're having issues with, for instance, sleep, you have this missing piece here, and CBD comes and it fills it in. And that's why you'll start to have that REM sleep and regulated sleep. If you have pain, it'll, same thing, you have that missing piece and it comes in, it locks it in. And so the CBD is, it's cannabidiol is what it stands for. And I kind of think of it as essential, think of essential oils. They extract the oils from the plants to create these essential oils. Well, they're extracting the oil from the hemp flower. So that's why it's called hemp flower extract. And they're extracting the oil, and then they mix it in with a carrier oil, which we use organic MCT oil, which is coconut oil. And then the hemp is actually USDA certified organic as well, which is what you need because hemp is a scavenger plant. So it sucks everything in from the environment and from the soil, everything. And so in order to be USDA certified organic, that soil had to be organic for 3 years prior. Well, our farms, because we own our farms actually were organic 25 years before even becoming a hemp farm, because they did sweet potatoes before that. So that soil is organic. And then of course the environment around it. And so that oil is mixed in, and then you just place it under your tongue for 60 to 90 seconds, and it goes sublingually through your body. And then it'll kind of just, again, locks and keys into those missing spaces that you're missing. And everybody has different spaces that are missing. Mine is probably anxiety and stress and balance and focus and definitely memory. And so that locks it in for me and kind of fills that in so that I can actually have balance and homeostasis come along, where someone else's, Leah's, might be different. My husband's is pain for his back pain and his sleep, and things like that. So it'll fill it in. We have people that, my dad, he has severe arthritis. So he flares up, like he has severe arthritis, and he's been on CBD since 2020 as well. And he's been able to get off his daily pain meds because, again, it locks in and helps with his pain management. Did I
love explain it? Like, it's like you have it make like more sense to me, like even as we talk about it, because I'm like still learning. But the fact that hemp was, because I've been using hemp for years, like for years, like before I Carolina, like, you know, I was in Virginia, like I've been an advocate. And when I realized it was a scavenger plant, and then it really was taking in everything, and it's like, if you don't know where it's coming from, like, and that's with everything that we're talking about. And that's why I wanted to weave it all in together, because it's really just, this conversation is an invitation to get intentional and to really take that pause. We live in a really fast world where it's like, go do this, eat, work, da 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 da. And like, can we just in general as a society, like, can we slow it down? Can we take that minute to pause and be like, will this piece of food or putting on this makeup or, you know, taking this oil, is it going to make me feel really great and thrive? Or is it gonna like almost like band-aid, but also make me like feel heavier and, you know, and just not in that place of feeling the best? Like, I love that word homeostasis, right? Like, that's optimal, right? Like, how can we feel really good in our bodies? And I think it is about being intentional around our choices and making healthier choices. So I absolutely love that. Let me check the chat. Sonia says, I'm definitely going to do more research about the lactose intolerance. My 3-month-old keeps spitting up a lot after every feed. He's on Similac formula. His doctor keeps saying it's normal, and he is just a pukey baby. Yeah, you know, research. And that was another reason why I felt really called to bring you on, is because I know that, you know, you're a mama, and this came from a place of like, I want my children to thrive. And like, you know, like I think you mentioned in the beginning, like, you're being an advocate for your family. And so how can we be advocates for our families, for our own selves, so we can all be in this place where we're feeling really good in our bodies? Like, you know, it's really surprising to hear, but we don't actually have to feel like shit like half the time. Instead, are walking around in their bodies feeling miserable in some way. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I have chills when I say that. Like, it's the same way as like when we find these things that light up our soul, like, and you're like, wait, like, how have I been missing this? Or like community, like, oh wow, it feels so great to be connected. Like, imagine if the things you were putting on and in your body helps you feel better, right? Like, everyone's walking around so much happier, like, you know, and just more connected and grounded. Like, oh, so absolutely research, like put that power back in yourselves. You have the right to research. You have the right to choose. And again, you know, this conversation is not one to be exclusive in any way or entitled in any way or privileged in any way. You know, we're coming from a place where, yeah, like we might be able to buy CBD, or we might be able to buy organic, you know, meats, and we know that's not for everyone. So what are small choices that you can make? If you're looking at things like what food type makes your body feel better than others? Maybe pasta really makes you feel yucky. and a salad or even a steak makes you feel really good. Just getting to know yourself in that intimate way. And then in whatever budget, in whatever lived experience you're having, making those choices from that connected center of like, okay, this feels like the best choice for me. And I think just kind of slowing down a little bit, right? But absolutely the research, Sonia. And then Sonia also said, love all this info about CBD. Definitely need some in my life. Yes, my love. I will definitely talk to you more about that. If anyone has any questions about, about the food stuff, like we're going to do a thread in here about food specifically, because I think that's important. If you have any questions about the beauty industry, you can connect with Jess. You can drop it here in this chat, or I can link you up with her. If you have any questions about CBD, you can link up with me or Jess. Like, we're here to help and to kind of spread this information. I'm one of those people, it's like, I know I've said it a few times, like once you know better, do better. But also because I'm such an advocate for community, once you know better, do better and tell a friend. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, can we share these things that are changing our lives? And I was a little, I'll just full transparency, because this is how I am in here, I was a little hesitant to like have you come on and be live, knowing that like I am an advocate for Green Compass, and so if people want it, like I do sell it, but I know this conversation is important. And so I sat with myself like, Leah, this comes from a place of integrity. This is changing your life. It's helping your son that has ADHD. Like, just because that's a piece of this conversation you're going to have with Jessica, who inspires you, don't not do it, right? Like, it's so helpful, and I want my friends to feel better. And so, that's why I wanted to bring in this. And I feel really passionate about bringing in more speakers that are going to speak to our body's wellness as well. I just think it's really important. It's like, I feel like in this community, we got like the mindset and the spirit stuff like covered, right? Like, we're solid. And I recently wove in an Ayurvedic, practitioner that's in here sharing once a month. And I knew you were the person I wanted to bring in to kind of talk about that big umbrella of really slowing down and making conscious choices. And I think of all these things as like things in your tool belt, right? So it's like, okay, here I got, if I'm going to have the beauty stuff, it's going to be here. And then like, here's my CBD, and here's my movement, and here's my, meditation. I love that you brought up breathing. And yeah, like if we can slow down and make those choices, like, then our kids see that. Like, I love that you brought up the mirroring that's happening through the siblings in your family, right? That they all ended up kind of learning the breathing techniques. I see the same with Kaya. Like, she'll do different things, and I'll hear her, either chanting or doing meditation. I'm like, oh, like they're watching.
Oh, yeah.
So we can all have these hard and kind of uncomfortable conversations now and start going against the grain a little bit. Like, imagine what it will be like in 5 years, 10 years.
I'm reading Stacy's. So I'm just going to tell you guys this. Don't go for it. This is just me. This is my personal opinion. Don't go for the deltas. They are synthetically made. So there's chemicals. Yes, they'll get you high. Go for something, number one, that's USDA certified organic. For me personally, I'm still nursing, so I'm on broad spectrum. So I have one that has no THC, and the one that we do have that's full spectrum that has THC is 0.3% or lower. It's legal in all 50 states, and you don't have a psychoactive effect. It doesn't give you anything like that at all. So, but the deltas are synthetically made. The government's actually going to be starting to crack down really bad on those. So, so yeah, those, just be careful with those. Again, it's the ingredients. Check the ingredients. And if you have any questions, screenshot your ingredients to Leah, and she can help you kind of tell what's in the ones that you guys have, because 80% out there on the shelves. And there's a great article. I probably should link it in here, Leah, afterwards, that talks about the regulation process that's going to start going through. So a lot of this like crap that's on the like shelves and like Food Line and stuff like that are going to be gone. So so yeah, just pay attention to that and we'll help you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just important to know what's in things. And that's why I appreciate, the scanning apps that I've been using now, the beauty and food. And I love that, at least with Green Compass, they show everything that's in the product. They have something you can scan that shows me exactly like the bottle that I have, like what's in it. And I love that. Like, I'm all for transparency on like all fronts. Like, I don't even appreciate, I started learning that even in the beauty industry, like if you even like see the word fragrance, there's like so much that now they can kind of like hide underneath that word fragrance. And so it's just so interesting to me. But I think, like we've been saying, just the more conversations we can have around this, just to kind of let people be aware that like, hey, maybe take a pause and just kind of see what's in some of the things, and then make choices that are right for you and that feel good for you. It has to come, from that place. But I do hope that this conversation sparks curiosity, you know, if nothing else, just to be like, oh, well, I wonder what is in some of the stuff that I'm, you know, consuming daily or giving to my kids, or, you know, things like that. Let me see if there's any other questions, and then I have one more. Okay. If you have any questions, if you were catching the replay and you want to drop questions, we will come back and answer. But I would love to maybe end the conversation with, if you were to just leave this community with like one like lasting message or tip around making like healthier choices, like what like nugget of wisdom can you drop here with us tonight, Jessica?
I think we kind of went over it, but my biggest thing is start small and just do one thing. Just do one thing. Don't try to switch your entire household or anything like that, because just do one thing. And if you have any questions, like ask somebody that might have knowledge. Like, you know, for instance, when one thing that I just changed this year, so everything, again, I'm just doing one thing at a time, was like my laundry detergent, you know. So again, because that's something that absorbs, but again, one thing. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't feel like you need to be overwhelmed. Just do one thing. Choose what you think should be the first thing you do, and then conquer that, and then go and conquer something else later on, you know. But that would be my biggest piece of advice, is don't get overwhelmed with it. Just do one thing that benefits you and your family to make it better, and then just find something else after.
Yes, I love that. We are doing the best we can. And when we find new information, let's just, you know, make those small shifts. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who joined live. Thank you for those that are catching the replay. Jessica, I can't wait to be with you in person. You're just such a bright light, and you're so honest in all of the ways that you do share about you and your family, and it's always so adorable. Like I love watching your stories, and it's really inspiring, and it inspires me to take a bigger look at, you know, all of the things, you know, in my life. I have been making small shifts, and it's really just been like, I'll see something in your stories, I'm like, oh, like maybe I should look at that. And so thank you for just being one of those way showers, because when you are going against the grain, or you're doing something that can like ruffle feathers, you know, it can feel scary and vulnerable. And I honor you and your strength and your truth, and standing in that power and being like, this is what feels good for me and my family, and because of that, I want to share it with others. And it really takes someone, everything we talk about in here, like your truth, your beauty, your magic, and your power. So like, I see you and I appreciate you. If people want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to find you or reach you? And we can also drop that in the comments as well after the live's over.
So on Facebook, I'm just Jessica Hudacko, Hudacko, and on Instagram, I'm balancing then .5. So like balancing my 5 kids all the time.
I feel like we're here. It is definitely a balancing act for sure. Oh, well, thank you so much. Love, and I will have to grab a coffee soon.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you to you, Leah, and this community that you built up. It's beautiful. It is just beautiful, and it's a light in this world. And I'm just grateful for people like you that bring this light, and you guys that are part of this community that bring light to this world. So I'm grateful for you all too. Thank you.
Yes, we are all in it together. All right, everybody, have a great night. So much love. Bye.
Bye, guys.